I don't understand. How did that get in there?
You know how.
The airport security line pulsed with the chaos of hurried travelers, but the world slowed to a sickening crawl when the police swarmed us. "Who owns this bag?" One officer barked, his gloved hand gripping a sleek black carry-on, my wife's carry-on. My stomach lurched as Emily's face drained of color, her hazel eyes darting to me, then away, like a trapped animal. The air thickened with the stench of stale coffee and sweat, the hum of conveyor belts grinding in my ears. I opened my mouth to say it was Hayes, but her trembling hand squeezed mine, a silent plea to stay quiet. That grip, once a tether of love, now felt like a shackle. We'd been married 7 years, Emily and I thought I knew every corner of her heart. The way she'd hum Ofki while cooking, the way her laugh could unravel my worst days. But standing there, surrounded by uniforms and the weight of accusing stays, I felt the ground shift beneath me. The bag wasn't just Hayes. It was a Pandora's box, and I wasn't ready for what it might unleash. "Step forward," the officer said, his voice sharp as a blade. Emily hesitated, her fingers slipping from mine, cold and clammy. She moved toward the bag, her shoulders hunched, as if bracing for a blow. My mind raced, replaying the morning, her distracted glances at her phone, the way she'd packed in a rush, snapping at me when I offered to help. I'd chalked it up to travel stress, but now those moments felt like splinters under my skin. "Is this yours?" the officer pressed, unzipping the bag with deliberate slowness. The crowd around us stilled, their murmurs fading into a suffocating silence. Emily nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line. I wanted to scream at her to explain, to demand what she was hiding, but my throat was a desert. The officer pulled out a small velvet pouch, its deep blue fabric glinting under the fluorescent lights. He opened it, revealing a man's watch, gold, expensive, unfamiliar. My heart stuttered. I'd never seen it before. "Care to explain this?" the officer asked, his tone heavy with suspicion. Emily's breath hitched, and she looked at me, her eyes pleading for something I couldn't name. Forgiveness, maybe, or time to weave a lie. "It's a gift," she stammered, "for my husband." The words hit me like a slap, not because they were true, but because they weren't. I'd never worn a watch like that, all flash and ostentation. My style was simple, practical. She knew that. She knew me. The officer raised an eyebrow, unconvinced, and rummaged deeper. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, its edges worn, as if it had been handled too many times. He unfolded it, his eyes scanning the text, and I caught a glimpse of tight, unfamiliar handwriting. My pulse thundered in my ears. "This yours too?" he asked Emily, holding it out. She froze, her face a mask of panic, and I knew, God help me, I knew, whatever was on that paper would gut me. "It's nothing," she said, her voice brittle, like glass about to shatter. "Just a note." The officer handed it to another uniformed man, who read it silently, his expression darkening. "We need to discuss this in private," he said, motioning toward a side room. Emily's hand reached for mine again, but I pulled back, the sting of her lie burning through me. "What's in the note? M." I whispered, my voice raw. She didn't answer, just followed the officers, her steps heavy, like she was walking to her own execution. In that sterile, windowless room, the truth unraveled like a poly-stitch wound. The note wasn't a love letter, not exactly, but it was worse, a confession scrawled in desperation. "I can't keep doing this. I love you, but I'm drowning. I need to tell him." It was addressed to someone named Daniel. My chest tightened, the name a blade twisting in my gut. Daniel, her co-worker, the one she'd mentioned in passing, always with a laugh, a shrug, he's just a friend. I'd believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative was too heavy to bear. The watch, she admitted under the officer's relentless questions, was a gift from him. Not for me, but for him. She'd been carrying it to return it, she claimed, her voice shaking as she spun a story about a moment of weakness, a mistake she regretted. The officers didn't care about our marriage. They were focused on the watch's origins. Stolen, they suspected, from a high-profile theft reported weeks ago. But I didn't hear their questions anymore. All I could hear was the blood roaring in my ears, the echo of her voice saying, "I love you," to someone who wasn't me. Why? I asked when the officers stepped out, leaving us in that suffocating room. My voice cracked, betraying the anger I tried to bury. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but they didn't soften me. Not this time. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, her hands twisting in her lap. "It was just attention. He saw me when I felt invisible. You were always working, always gone in your head. I was lonely, Mark." Her words were a punch, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. I'd been drowning in deadlines, chasing promotions, thinking I was building a future for us. I hadn't noticed her slipping away, hadn't seen the cracks in her smile. But that truth didn't erase the betrayal. It only made it sharper, like a knife coated in guilt. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She looked away, her silence louder than any confession. 6 months, she finally said, and I felt the air leave the room. 6 months of lies, of stolen moments, of her body next to mine while her heart was elsewhere. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to demand how she could smile at me, touch me, plan a future with me while carrying the secret. But all I could do was sit there, my hands clenched, my world collapsing. The officers returned, their questions shifting to logistics, where she got on the watch, what she knew about Daniel's dealings. Emily answered in fragments, her voice hollow, as if she'd already given up. I listened, numb, piecing together a story I didn't want to understand. Daniel wasn't just a fling. He was trouble, tangled in things darker than infidelity. The watch was a bribe, a token from a man who thought he could buy her loyalty. And Emily, my Emily, had been too deep in his orbit to see the danger. They let us go after hours of questions, the watch confiscated, a warning to stay available for further investigation. We walked through the airport in silence, our flight missed, our bags abandoned. The terminal buzzed around us, oblivious to the wreckage of our marriage. I wanted to hate her, to walk away and never look back, but love doesn't die that easily, even when it's bleeding. I kept seeing her face in the security line, the fear in her eyes, not just of the police, but of losing me, and I hated myself for still caring. Outside, the night air was cold, the stars hidden by city lights. Emily stopped, her voice barely a whisper. "Can we fix this?" she asked, her eyes searching mine for something I wasn't sure I could give. I thought of the note, of Daniel's name, of the watch that wasn't mine. And then I thought of the mornings we'd spent tangled in sheets, the promises we'd made, the life we'd built before it all fractured. "I don't know," I said, and the words felt like a betrayal of their own. We stood there, two strangers who used to be everything, the weight of her secret hanging between us. And as I turned away, the airport's neon glow fading behind me, I realized the real twist wasn't the watch or the note. It was that I still loved her, and that love might be the thing that broke me most.